Hello, my dear friends. Today I want to discuss the topic variation. If this is your first time of viewing, kindly consider subscribing to my YouTube channel and also follow my Facebook page, like, share, comment, and make sure that every student around you gets to know about this page and channel too. All right, so we'll be talking about the topic variation. I don't think I'll do any calculation today in discussing this variation, but I'm going to give you a very good background of the topic we're talking about, variation. So I want you to actually understand this topic, variation, and see that variation is not far from what you experience every now and then in your daily lives. So any day you wake up, from the time you wake up to the end of that particular day, variation must take place in your life. So when we talk about the term variation in mathematics, we simply mean the kind of relationship that is existing between two or more quantities. It cannot just be two. Sometimes it can be more than two quantities. A sort of relationship that exists between two or more quantities, such that a change in one quantity will bring about a corresponding change in the other quantity. When this happens, we say that there is variation. There is a relationship between the two or more quantities we are talking about. So I repeat again, I'm saying that variation is a kind of relationship that exists between two or more quantities in such a way that a change in one quantity brings about a corresponding change in the other quantity or quantities, as the case may be. Now take for instance, now assuming the cost of a pen is 50 naira and you want to buy two pens, you pay 100 naira because the cost of a pen is 50 naira. If you want to buy three pens, you pay 150 naira because since the cost of a pen is 50 naira, for you to have three pens with you, you have to pay 50 naira into three times. That gives you 150 naira. The cost of four pens will be 200 naira. You can now see that when the amount of money you have for the pen is increasing, the quantity of pen or the number of pens you can buy will also increase. That is a relationship. And when your money is too small, the number of pens you will buy will also be small too. That is variation for you. Also, you can have a situation whereby if you ask 100 persons to paint a house, it can take them maybe 1 hour to finish that. But when you ask two persons to paint a very big house, it can take them more hours to paint that house. You can see that when the workers are much, the time is too small, and when the workers are few, the time is too high. So you see that anything that happens to one quantity must have a corresponding influence, a corresponding change in the other quantity. That is what we call variation. Another instance of variation in our daily life is when the speed of a car is increasing. The time it will take the car to reach its destination will reduce. But when the speed is too small, the time it will take the car to reach its destination will increase. That is a relationship for you. So, and any little effect on one quantity must cause a harm on the other quantity, a harm or a good. Okay, it's either it increases it or it decreases it, and that is what we meant by the term variation. All right, in mathematics, there are four types of variation. The first one is we have the direct variation. So we have the direct variation, we have the indirect variation. If you don't call it indirect variation, you are free to call it inverse variation. Another type of variation we have in mathematics is the joint variation. The joint variation, then followed by the partial variation. These are the four cases of variation we have in mathematics. I said that the first one is direct variation, the second one is indirect or inverse variation, the third one is joint variation, and the fourth one is the partial variation. I'm going to tell you their meaning one after the other, okay, and give you a clear explanation of all of them so that subsequently we can start solving questions that involves these kinds of variation. All right, now in the direct variation, you can say that the relationship between two or more quantities is direct if an increase in one quantity will cause the other quantity to increase, or a decrease in one quantity will also cause the other quantity to decrease. You can now see that they go hand in hand. Once you increase one, the other one will increase. Once you decrease one, the other one will decrease. If these things I'm talking about takes place, you now know that the relationship existing between the two or more quantities you are talking about is non-direct. A good example of this direct variation is in purchasing. The more money you have, the more goods you'll be able to buy. If a pen is 50 naira, if you have 100 naira, you can buy 2 pens. If you have 150, you can buy 3 pens. You now see that as your money increases, the quantity of pens you'll be able to buy will also increase. That is a direct variation, right? Also, the indirect variation is just a kind of variation whereby an increase in one will cause a decrease in the other. They don't go hand in hand. And if you try to decrease the other one will do what? Increase. That is indirect or inverse. It goes like a swing. A wonderful example of this indirect variation is when the speed of a car is too high, the time it will take the car to reach its destination will be too long, will be too low. All right, the higher the speed, the shorter the time. But the slower the speed, the longer the time. All right, you see, it's going like a swing. That is a good example of indirect variation. You can see this. You can still see this example when you're talking about work. When there are more laborers, the time it will take them to perform this work will reduce. But when the laborers are few, the time will increase. So you can see that it is still indirect variation. Another example, another type of variation we have is the joint variation. Now, to me, honestly, the measure kind of variation we have in mathematics are just the direct and indirect. Others are just a subsidiary of these two. Okay, so if you talk about joint variation, it's just a sort of variation that involves either direct, inverse, or a combination of inverse and direct. All right, from the name joint, it's talking about an amalgamation coming together of these two types of variation, or bringing two quantities, talking about two or more quantities that vary directly or inversely, or you talk about a combination of both direct and inverse. That is a joint variation. All right. So, and the joint variation, you may see more than two quantities. That is where you see more than two quantities in joint variation, unlike the direct and indirect variation, which is mostly talking about relationship that exists between two quantities. All right, so just see joint variation as just a combination of these two, or combination of direct and direct, or indirect and indirect. Now, partial variation is just talking about a relationship that exists between two quantities with a fixed constant. For example, now, assuming the cost of a cloth, let me be your teller now, even though I don't sew clothes, but now let me be a teller. All right, so assume that Esom North is a teller now, I sew clothes. Okay, now assuming I charge 500 naira for sewing a cloth. That is my charge for sewing a cloth. Now, now if the time it takes me in sewing a part, now assuming I want to sew your cloth now, there are some clothes that will involve a lot of designs. Okay, now these designs that are involved in these clothes that may take me more time to make the clothes ready. All right, so the more design in your clothes, the more I'm likely to charge you. So I can say, this is the charge I will take in sewing this clothes. If you have designs, let's say if there are two designs in your clothes, you are going to pay like 200 naira. Okay, so I may say 100C, for instance. This 100C means if there are two designs in this book, I'll put 2 here for C, so that 100 times 2 will give me 200. I will now add 100. I will now add 200 to this 500, which is the fixed cost. Okay, if there are 3 designs in your clothes, I will say 100 times 3. It will give me 300. I'll add 300 to this 500. It gives me the total cost. So this fixed cost is what I charge in sewing my clothes. So assuming if I don't want design, I can say sewing a cloth, I must collect 300 naira. This I want to give another example. Plus 20t. 20t can be the time it takes me in sewing that cloth. So if your cloth takes me like 30 minutes, I'll just put 30 here. So 20 times 30 is 600. I'll add 600 to 300 to give me 900. If your cloth takes me like 60 minutes, I'll put 60 here. 60 times 20 is 1200. 1200 plus 300 is 1500. You can see that I will use this in calculating your charge, the amount of money I am going to take from you to sew that given clothes. So this one here is the fixed charge. No matter the kind of clothes it is fixed. Anytime you bring clothes for me to sew, know that you are paying 300 plus the time it will take me to sew the clothes. All right, that is partial variation. You can see that these things are coming together makes the full cost, so they are partial. All right, now summarily, in variation there is what we call constant, because all these things I'm talking about, relationship between two or more quantities. All right, sometimes we say that if one quantity increase, the other will increase, or if one quantity increases, the other will decrease. All these things I'm talking about will only happen if one condition is satisfied, and that condition is the constant. We normally represent the constant in variation with letter C, the constant C. The constant is just the quantity that will remain unchanged for the relationship that exists between two quantities to hold. If this constant changes, this relationship between two quantities will change. It will no longer hold again. What am I talking about? A constant. I made an example using the pen. If I have 50 naira, I can buy one pen. If I have 100 naira, I can buy 2 pens. Okay, what if there is inflation? You go to market one day and you find out that the cost of a pen is 900 naira. You can now see that when you have 100 naira, you can no longer buy 2 pens, rather you can only purchase 1 pen. So this relationship is no longer holding very well. Therefore, the quantity that is supposed to be constant, which is 50 naira, is no longer constant. It is changing. All right. Also, when we talked about when there are many laborers, the time it will take them to do the job will reduce. What if you have weak men that are not strong, and you called like 50 weak men to come and perform a work? Do you know that if you have 10 very strong men, that 10 men can finish the work in lesser time than the 50 weak men? Do you not see that the strength of the men you are talking about are no longer the same thing? Therefore, there is no constant there. That relationship will not hold. All right. But if you call somebody like me, a very strong man like Esomnofu, to do the work, under 1 minute, I will finish that work for you. You can now see that for the relationship between two or more quantities to hold, there must be a constant. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow my Facebook page. Comment, like, and share this video. Await the next episode on the topic variation. We are going to deal with this topic very well. So we shall involve ourselves in the calculation aspect of this topic in the next video. End mass phobia, where you are. End mass phobia now. Thank you.